Good. How are you?
Well, I'm Chris Cooney with the Metro South Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to week 16 of our COVID recovery and resource call. We have a number of folks with you from the city, the state, and the federal government to provide you some additional information as we all go along this uncharted journey of COVID recovery. A lot of new information coming out this week. We expect more information within the next couple as Congress begins to nail down some definites on a fourth phase of the stimulus. We expect that to possibly be another $1 to $3 trillion, depending on whose plan you look at. And a lot of that will be for schools and for local municipalities, as well as businesses. So we'll keep you posted on that. We do have an invitation out to Congressman Lynch, as well as Keating, Bill Keating, who has said he would like to come onto the call, and will be planning on doing so either in July or August. Just want to remind you, if you have a question, please post it in the Q&A section or the chat. If you missed something and you want to go back, we will be sending out a recording of this. All of the recordings that we've made over the last 16 weeks are on the metrosouthchamber.com website, and you can check that out. Also, updates are there as well. So I just wanted to, as I'm letting more people come on here, we have a number of companies that are hiring. We just received an update that there are over 1 million people out of work. The unemployment rate is around 18% in the state of Massachusetts currently. With that said, over 80,000 jobs have been added in the last 6 or 8 weeks. But since last year, we have lost 500,000 jobs. So with that said, Crescent Credit Union has reached out to us. They are hiring. They have about 12 positions they're hiring for right now, as well as Bridgewater Savings Bank has more than a dozen positions that they're hiring. And one just came in this morning from Frito-Lay. A lot of people know the Stacy's pita chip brand. They're right in Randolph, and they have union jobs. They have positions at $18.50 an hour. Up to $19.25 an hour if you take the second or third shift. I've been over there several times. It's really extraordinary facility. They pump out more pita chips than you can shake a stick at. I mean, it's really extraordinary, and they're delicious, and it's a great place to work. We've been working with those folks over the last few years and trying to help them fill positions and whatnot. And they reached out to us this morning, asking us to mention it. So there you go. Mayor, how are you? I know you've been everywhere, and I think you and I are planning on next Wednesday possibly seeing the Samson Funeral Home. Tom Sampson's going to give us a tour. I know it's a beautiful building, and you and I have been talking about it just coming onto the market. It's on the same lot as a small little church in the back there, and combining those two lots might be a great opportunity for development and possibly for more parking in that area too. So how are you, and how's it going?
Yeah, no, thanks, Chris, and great to see Susan and Margaret again, and glad everybody's participating. This is week in and week out. The information that's being given is very, very valuable. So I look forward to seeing Samson Funeral Home next to St. Patrick's across from the main library. It's really a beautiful architectural building. It's historic. And you're right, on the Cottage Street side, the backside, there's some opportunity for real development there if you razz the church back there, and it's in tough shape, so you probably would do that. So just wanted to first give you, like I always do, COVID updates if I could. We have lost a few more residents. We're at 265 deaths, 265 loss of lives. That's the sad news. The good news is 65 is the current case number. We were up to 2,500, surpassed 2,500 at one point, and then 4,291 active total cases overall. So couple good things to report. The second city pool was open today. The Cosgrove pool on the east side next to Crescent Court, that's open today. Both branches of the library, of course, the main library was open last Friday. This week it's the East Branch and West Branch. Council on Aging Senior Center is still closed out of abundance of caution for the seniors, but City Hall is open. We're ready, willing, and able to help the taxpayers and the constituents, and things are going really, really well. One other thing I just wanted to announce, Chris, As I declared in June, a community justice task force is being created out of my office, specifically by myself. After I took the Obama pledge, my brother's keeper, we need to have the building blocks for success, real change, real systemic change in Brockton, so Brockton can be an example for the Commonwealth and the nation. And we're going to have 8 people on that task force. The first 3, I'm proud to announce, are attorney Mike Curry. Mike's a Brockton resident, used to be president of the Boston NAACP. He's not just known in the Commonwealth, he's known in the nation. Phyllis Ellis is the second. Phyllis is the president of the Brockton NAACP chapter. And then the third person at this time, who's been a friend of mine, dear friend of mine since junior high and high school. We went to BC together, and he went on to become a judge, is Judge Mike Williams. And Mike's a Brocktonian, and he's going to be a wonderful asset to the task force. So just wanted to, first of all, thank publicly those 3 individuals. There's been a press release, and we're going to add to the base, not subtract. And good things are happening right now. The best thing right now is the numbers are reflecting such a positive trend right now in COVID, but we can't take our foot off the gas pedal because we look at the southern states and the spike, and we can't afford that here in Brockton.
Great. Thank you. Testing, I know there's been some adjustment on the testing because the need has seemed to kind of wane a little bit. They every other day now, is that correct?
So they're doing it, yeah, it's at Brockton High. It's outside, Forest Ave entrance, past Marciano Stadium and a Little Red Schoolhouse. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's 3 hours. They're getting on average 30 to 35 people per day testing. So by all means, call Brockton Neighborhood Health Center to pre-register, but it's going to be there. It's going to be there for the long term.
That's great. So, and that's open to anybody in the region that feels like they need to have a test if they're having symptoms, or some people are taking it if they're traveling to other states or other countries and they feel like they're being told that they need a negative test. How long does it take to get the results? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, unfortunately, having a little bit of lag now. It was 3 days. Now it's up to 8 days. There has been an influx of people because of vacations and traveling outside of the tri-state and New England region. So it is taking up to 8 days, Chris, but there's no parameters. You don't have to live in Brockton or work in Brockton. Neighboring communities are welcome, and you just get to pre-call that number, and then they'll give you a set time. You drive in, and it's a quick test process.
And I was told it's free. You don't have to have insurance. That it's being covered by a federal grant. Or
that's
correct,
true? Chris. Yep. The only thing they'll ask again is certain information, and stuff that needs to be put into a patient file.
Sure. Mayor, I know you're talking about Porter and Chester opening pretty soon, and there's other building and construction going on in the city. I know we touch on this, but anything new you have to mention, or anything new that you are looking at down the pike in terms of opportunities or development or projects that are coming up?
Yeah, I mean, again, Westgate Mall, we granted a TIF. I signed it proudly, and the city council approved it. So Westgate Mall is seeing some really good renovations up there, and of course, the 28 Petronelli Way. Ted Carmen took me on a tour of that, and the downtown area, of course, the old Ganley Building and Kresge Building. But Brockton has never put a moratorium on construction, and I think that was a brilliant idea. And I'm not taking credit. I listen to a lot of smarter people than myself, but because of that, we're really at an advantage right now, and we're seeing the windfall of people that understand that the price point of Brockton, location to Brockton is Route 24 and how it's close to Providence and Boston and the Cape. So if people are interested, by all means, reach out to my office, reach out to the planning office, reach out to Chris Cooney and Metro South Chamber of Commerce. We welcome you. We encourage you to please consider becoming a champion within the City of Champions.
That's great, Mayor. And then one thing I know you and I have been going back and forth on, Lowe's, speaking of the mall, they donated a bunch of masks for women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. And last week I mentioned it, and I get a bunch of emails asking from outside of the city whether they could access it. I told them no. I think it's Brockton specific.
It was earmarked specifically to the city of Brockton in this case.
Okay. All right. And they just simply need to call Rob May. And
just make it easy. Call the mayor's office, 508.
Okay.
508-580-7123.
Okay.
Or email me, Mayor Sullivan at COBMA, cityofbrocktonmass.us.
All right, that's terrific. Thank you. I know I'm trying to be clear with folks because not everybody qualifies, and it's not all towns. It's just Brockton and some specific businesses. Lowe's really wanted to try to get it to a small business, especially I think restaurants, retailers that may have been out of work and they don't have a lot of money to buy all these masks for customers and for employees. So that is available. Thank you very much for
Thank
clarifying
you.
that. Now we're going to move on to Susan Whitaker, and we have both Susan and Margaret this week from the Mass Office of Business Development. So I think you were both on the call with me just a little while ago with secretaries and such, and that was, I think, one of the quickest calls we've had. With that said, there was a lot of good content. I was hoping that Susan, maybe you might mention a little bit about Secretary Costa's report. I know I mentioned a few of the numbers, but also there was questions about the wedding industry. And I know there's been a coalition that's been organized, and their letter is very well written. I know there's a lot of frustration in that industry. There's a lot of strain on them. They also are really concerned about having enough notice to get back up and running, because weddings take 6 or 8 weeks to get rescheduled. And they're concerned that, they need a little heads up. They can't just, jumpstart. So anyway, I'm hoping that both of you can kind of touch on a little bit of those two. Hi, Susan.
Yeah, I think, well, it's clear that the leisure and hospitality sector is seeing the most significant loss of jobs, and I think the whole thrust and focus all along with the phase reopening has been data, not dates. And so I think it's really difficult because we can't predict what the data is going to reflect and know, within such and such time, that especially when you look across the country and you see kind of what's happened in other states, that they have seen a resurgence of COVID-19. And I think we are just in a very, we're in a very healthy position right now, really, when you compare us to a lot of other states. And so I think we just want to maintain that position. So, certainly understand the position that they're in, where they want to have additional time frame. But I think the nature of dealing with this pandemic just really doesn't allow for a whole lot of time frame up front, right? Because I think right now the focus for phase 4 is to have either drugs to treat the disease or to be able to have a vaccine. And so, we don't know when that's going to happen. No one knows when that's going to happen. So I think certainly understandable and why they would feel that level of frustration.
I think we'll probably share some of the additional information so people can kind of get a sense of what the argument is. They're really looking for a meeting. They want to be heard, and it's a vast coalition. I mean, I was shocked at the 400 or so entities that have come together, and I think they're just looking for an opportunity to be heard and to kind of convey their individual concerns about the facilities. And it was amazing. Almost all of our facilities down this way were part of it. In fact, the guy leading it is from the Canoe Club in West Bridgewater. And we've got the Sapphire Group, who's very active as well. They have 3 wedding facilities in our region. So they're just looking for a meeting at this point. So I don't know if you can put a word into Mike Keneally and see if we can kind of just get a direct call. They said they had talked to somebody in the governor's office, but it didn't seem to facilitate a meeting. Anyway, I just thought I mentioned it because I was on the call with them today.
Be happy to do that.
Yeah. They were talking about New Hampshire and Rhode Island having, a little bit of an advantage, yet the numbers seem to be very similar. So just, that's all I have to say on that.
Okay. I'll definitely take that back for sure.
Right.
I think as far as the unemployment rate, I think we're still paying over 1 million claimants presently, and the claims are trending down as we continue to reopen. However, I think there's a lot of concern as to what's next, because all these individuals right now are presently receiving that additional $600 payment a week, which is due to expire July 31st. And that's going to have a tremendous impact for folks. So not knowing what's going to happen, I think is really leaving people very concerned and not knowing what's going to happen. So I think we're all waiting to hear what's going to happen there on that front. So that's another big question mark that, again, we don't have the answers to just yet. But, you know, there's quite a bit of discrepancy there. You know, some businesses are really struggling because people are making more money by not working than they would be at their jobs. And yet for individuals, it's also providing an ability to be able to stay afloat. So I think it's a very challenging situation all around. And that's really the latest and greatest when it came to the unemployment and workforce development status update. I would still encourage businesses, if they are not aware of the Workshare program, that's an option for them if they're looking to bring back employees but aren't able to do so at full time. That it's a layoff aversion program, but it can be worked kind of in the reverse, that you can bring back staff gradually so that unemployment will pick up and pay for part of their pay while you're paying to bring them back, so that they're on a reduced hourly schedule, between 10% and 60% of their hours that they normally work. And I can put some information in the chat box that will give them more details for them to look into, but that's just another offering that could be very helpful for some businesses. So
Thank you for mentioning that.
Go ahead.
I was going to say thank you for mentioning that, because I think it has benefited many organizations like ours and small businesses where they've been able to have their employees collect prorated unemployment at no cost to them and held harmless, and then they pay their remainder hours of what's needed by the employer. So there's a savings overall. It strengthens the employer, strengthens the employee, and bridges the gap. So thank you for posting that down below. We're recommending that people look at that.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people think about it when they have to lay people off, but they're not necessarily thinking about it when they're bringing staff back. So,
I see. Like for 40 hours or
right,
40%.
You may not be able to bring people back full time right away, so that you may need to do that in the reverse. So I think that's just not something that might come to mind as a way to utilize that program.
So how does that work? I don't think so if people are laid off completely right now, say you have 3 employees and you want to bring them back, you can bring them back for 16 hours and then they'll get paid a prorated amount of the unemployment, and then they get paid the rest from the employer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So very, very similar to the other way, just cutting hours 40 to 16. I see.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
So Margaret, how are you?
Great. So thank you so much. So let's see, on our updates, I want to start with what we did here on the Secretary call. Last week we talked about how the governor updated the travel advisory and with the New England states, New York, New Jersey. And as we talk about the summer in the tourism industry and the seasonality, Sue mentioned that leisure and hospitality has really been hardest hit in unemployment. But something that the Commonwealth is doing, we put an RFQ out for a marketing campaign about keeping it local and really attracting that drive market. So that's something to stay tuned for information on. We really are trying to get the message about, what's in your backyard and who we can support. For example, the Fuller Craft Museum I virtually visited last week. Other updates, let's see. The Small Business Strong, I know I've talked about this, but I'm really encouraging people. It's free technical assistance, accounting, human resources, legal, marketing, operations, digital. Everyone can use a hand. It's an opportunity for free assistance. smallbstrong.com to find out about that.
That's free. Is that free and online?
Yeah, so the online portal for you to sign up, and then the technical consultants will then reach out to you individually, right? So you might need accounting help, the accounting department, the accounting technical assistants would then connect, or if you need HR, they'd connect you with an HR technical assistant. Free.
Is that, I'm sorry, are they donating their time, or are they being paid by the state, or how's that work?
So it's a public-private partnership. I'm not really sure the logistics on that. I believe, I don't know whether the consultants have been hired, but it is free to the business.
Okay, well, that's down below as well in the chat.
Yep, so smallbstrong.com.
Okay.
Another piece I want to talk about, and I think Mayor Sullivan's going to appreciate this, because I really, when I was looking through this, see how well Brockton's positioned to benefit. So you've heard me talk, and Sue and I talk about the economic development bill the administration put forth. They put it together back in March, and they have since updated it. Each time a new administration comes on, they produce this economic development bill, kind of the funding strategy for the Commonwealth. So it's a 5-year plan with $275 million, capital funds across 3 core areas: housing, community development, in business competitiveness. And this is building on the previous success of the administration's Opportunities for All. So it's partnerships for growth. This plan's been updated as a result of COVID, and it really focuses on equity and recovery. And just we've talked about, I know housing production and the housing crisis in the Commonwealth is something we've often talked about. And it includes the zoning reform, the housing choice zoning reform. So in housing, it's talking about transit-oriented development, regional mobility, more market rate in workforce housing in gateway cities. Brockton, as you know, is a gateway city. Funding for sustainable and climate resilient affordable housing. For communities, the bucket for communities, stabilizing neighborhoods hardest hit. And as we know, Brockton really was hit hard by COVID. So it's capital funding for nonprofits, municipalities, community development corps, and it's helping revitalize neighborhoods in communities by returning blighted, vacant, and abandoned properties to productive use as affordable housing. So blight is one of my big pet peeves, these long vacancies, and some funding. So I thought that Brockton could, I really see opportunities there for you, for your community. Increasing community access through a one-stop portal. How do you navigate as a municipality all of the different resources, and the Commonwealth's really trying to streamline that, and then additional technical assistance. And for the business competitiveness, really more focused, coordinated, and targeted outreach, better alignment and coordination of these programs, right? You might hear about something and chase it down. Focusing on small businesses, and this is especially owned by women, minorities, and veterans, and record levels of funding, including loans, grants, and technical assistance, and also some Biz-Empower micro business grants and CDFI business lending. So we're really looking to infuse some funding into the small businesses through our economic development bill. Another area that we talk about is like key clusters, businesses and regions, to making investments and supporting growth of the clusters, right? So technology, fintech, blue economy, life sciences obviously is some of the big ones. So it's really going to position the state for continued investment in key sectors, emerging opportunities, focusing on consequential, effective, specific actions to support the identified clusters to grow the Commonwealth's economy. And then for workforce development, that are aligning training providers with employer needs, ensuring students are learning valuable skills to secure employment. And a particular focus there is going to be on manufacturing, trades, technology, and life sciences. So coming up upon the end of the legislative session, looking to have this voted. And again, that housing choice, housing production, something you've seen great success, market rate housing in your downtown with some recent projects that you highlighted, Mayor, I think last week, Joffrey's project. Sue and I had the pleasure to do a site visit with him as well. And so we can definitely talk offline once this is voted and make sure that Brockton and Brockton businesses and Brockton developers are all engaged in these opportunities. So stay tuned for that. And then again, I think it's just important to know each week when we're here, Chris, the Canoe Club, I didn't talk to the Canoe Club, but the wedding industry and that consortium, I had a conversation with them about, and I know that you're right on definitely the advocacy. I know myself have had some weddings. I was so excited for some family friends who's were getting married, and what a disappointment to really kind of reschedule for next year. And we're in phase 3 for a long time, and people are kind of the wedding industry saying like, well, guess what? I've got a backyard. I'm going to throw my own backyard wedding because I don't have that restriction. So that industry is really struggling right now. But if there is a Canoe Club wants to give Sue or I a call, we're happy to speak to them, send their feedback up to Secretary Keneally. I do know the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce is active in that consortium, and Wendy Northcross, their CEO, is on the tourism subcommittee of the Reopening Advisory Board. So most definitely the weddings, the function venue voices are being heard. they're being amplified. And some of those that have called me, I actually flew on the Rhode Island border, the New Hampshire borders, where the different rules beyond the Massachusetts border, have advised them to connect with their chambers. Like, how can we amplify this voice? We're hearing you. But I appreciate for you, your advocacy there. It's something, we feel for on all levels, for the businesses, for the brides, for the families. It's really a disappointment and a lot of pain for those business operators. So we are here for you. Sue and I always welcome you to contact us offline. We realize these Zoom webinars are great for us to get good reach, but especially at this time, a lot of the questions are really individual, and we respect the confidentiality of your company. So please give us a call, shoot us an email. You have our cell phones and contact information, and we're happy to work with any members of the Metro South Chamber or any of your 13 partner organizations you coordinate for us each week.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Margaret, both. I mean, it's great to have you guys in our corner and helping us as we go along. I wanted to acknowledge the fact that you helped us last week too. We were talking about some functions at the Brockton Rocks and about some of the nuances between what was permissible and what was not, and you really got into the research of the different aspects and got back to us and connected with Chris and all of that. So thank you for that. In fact, everyone that's had a question, you both have responded to immediately and helped them. So thank you for that. It makes it valuable.
Chris, I just want to really say that for the guidance, everybody, I think we've mentioned this each week, right? But in phase 3, if you were an essential business, a phase 1, phase 2 business, your sector guidance has been updated. We talked about a really methodical, staged approach in reopening, and that the restrictions would be loosened. So if you're a business that's operating, make sure you're looking off the latest guidance for you under phase 3. And then the other piece, especially the Brockton Rocks scenario, right? They have different businesses that are applicable. And as Sue and I have really helped businesses navigate because, for example, you're primarily the sports. Well, you're not professional sports, you're amateur sports. However, you have a beer garden function that has different guidance, and how those work together, like, it's difficult. So Sue and I can be really helpful to businesses and to the community. And I just think that's really important that, again, on this enforcement, we're trying to help people be safe in their reopening, meet the guidance, and understand the expectations for the safety of their workers and as well as their consumers. So really, some of the areas we're seeing struggles with that consumer behavior, what are people feeling comfortable with? And so for something like an outdoor venue and these outdoor beer gardens, they're seeing good traffic. And if that is going to able to supplement the operations, we all know that the city of Brockton has invested much into that, facility and being home to a team and having that, life, that activity and that amenity for your community and for the region and how we support them. So let's be creative. Mayor Sullivan's office, I'm happy to help work there. The local board of health is the lead, the state's there. We all want to be on the same page and having community and activities to do, and it's just so hard kind of coming into the summer for families with what they can do. We've seen a lot of performance venues who the guidance got updated for drive-in theaters. It originally just said you had to show a movie. Well, now, like, hey, put a big screen in the parking lot of the Rocks or on a field or someplace, and now it's like a tailgate, and the tailgate would be allowed because it's now theater. And they get to watch the game, and then they get to have spectators. So, you just really need to kind of talk through and be creative. And I know we've talked, Sue and I think last week you shared some good silver linings and success stories, and we're always happy to hear those as well. So happy to do anything we can to any business that has multiple guidance that they're trying to see how they piece together.
You bring up two other things that come into my mind from this past week is the golf tournaments are starting to return because they're allowed, and that folks who are looking for 2 golfers in a golf cart, not 1. And that makes a difference because a lot of the golf facilities don't have enough carts to give every player one cart. So that there has been some debate around that. Another example is fishing tournaments versus fishing derbies. tournaments have been banned, but derbies are okay. I'm not really sure what the difference is there. I'm sure there's a nuance, but our point is, don't assume you can't do something. Ask
Right.
Margaret, ask Susan, and they'll chase it down and figure out what's permissible. Mayor, it sounds like you had something you wanted to add to that.
No, I think Margaret and Susan have hit it on the head. You know, we have to be creative during these times, right? We need to be pro-business. We also need to be safe, right? No, rest assured on that. But at the end of the day, ask the questions, because the experts here week in and week out have the answers to your questions, and don't hesitate. There's no stupid question, is what my wife always says to me.
Is there any progress on the rocks? Are they now allowed? I know there was some confusion and there was some media around that. Are they allowed to have people in the outfield?
They are still, at this point, they're still not allowed to have spectators in the stands under the most recent governor's declaration. But with that being said, you know, they had the New York Yankees scout team play last week, and, you know, Chris English has been a good partner in the city of Brockton. So we need to be creative, but we also just have to make sure that we're safe, because we can't afford, because, you know, we're looking at the southern states, we can't afford that to happen here.
Yeah, agreed. So there'll be more clarification on that. It was amazing to me and kind of heartwarming that when he did make tickets available in earnest, they sold out in minutes. So I think there's a pent-up demand to get back to the rocks when we can, and that bodes well for the facility and the investment and the management over there. So I think that's a little bit of a silver lining. So the secretary talked about investment in staycations and marketing staycations. That term, the first time I heard that after 31 years was right after the last recession, when people were staying home and camping in their backyard, and little did we know that it would be back, and here it is. And now the state is actually planning a campaign around staycations, and they're talking about marketing to surrounding New England states as well as New York and New Jersey. We're kind of a pod, I guess, all of us, because our numbers are getting better, not worse. And so that's great. As a result, we actually reached out to the Plymouth County Development Council, and we are in talks with Edible South Shore, which is a fantastic quarterly magazine that just joined the chamber and may even be on this call today. And we're trying to coordinate a staycation ad, a cooperative ad, to get out to remind people of the U-Pick facilities to pick fresh produce and fruits and vegetables right through the fall. Also farmers markets, local beef, just places that are right around the area that you can go over safely, contribute to a local business while picking up something fun and doing something different, and then coming back to the community and into your home and kind of staying local and enjoying yourself. So again, thank you both. We have Eli with us. I know I received a notice, Eli, this morning that the EDIL advanced grants are expired, and those funds are no longer available. So that was up to the $10,000 grant. With that said, there's still money available in the EIDL and the PPP, and the PPP is extended to the 8th. So how are you? How you doing?
Doing great, Chris, and good afternoon to all. Thanks again for having us here on the call. That is the only news of the week, believe it or not, and it's not good news. So we've been expecting, as I mentioned in the previous call, we've been expecting some guidance for lenders on PPP loan forgiveness. We had a national call for lenders, a national call for SBA staff, and it's still in the works, but nothing's been released. So if we have any, lenders on the call that are well aware of the fact that, guidance for lenders is still pending. For small businesses on the call, again, no need to rush to submit your loan forgiveness applications. Lenders cannot submit it to the SBA yet, okay? So that's the sort of bad news, good news type of a scenario. The EIDL program, again, a phenomenal program, as you said the advance reached its capacity, so the allocation of $20 billion was reached on the 11th of July. So I've got some stats, of course, that, as you know, I'd love to share with everyone, and I'll go briefly through the numbers here. But again, the news that we've all been expecting and anticipating is just not out there yet. And, The only news that we have is the fact that the EIDL loan program is still going strong, right, on the loan side of it. And again, there's no better deal out there than the 3.75% for the for-profit businesses.
Yep. Oh, I think you froze there, Eli. He was talking about Eli was talking about hopefully he'll pop back on, but he's talking about the EIDL, 30 years at 3.75. The average loan right now is about $150,000. I've gotten actually quite a few emails and calls this week and last about those funds because they're so attractive. Some people are using them to pay off higher interest loans and also for working capital. So that's been very welcome. Hopefully Eli will jump back on here. The other thing he was probably going to mention is the fact that the PPP is extended to the 8th of August, so you can still receive PPP funds, and those funds can be expended, I think, for the next 30 weeks or 26 weeks on both personnel or human resources as well as operational costs, and it's forgivable. The forgivable link, I think we have it down below, but it's absolutely on our Metro South Chamber website where you can access an easy application to get your loan forgiven. So it's a forgivable loan. That's the PPP. And then lastly, he's probably going to mention, he's very good about not speculating, but I will. Obviously, the president has mentioned and Congress has approved, so we're waiting on the Senate. There's going to be a fourth round of stimulus here that will benefit workers, employers, municipal governments, as well as schools. And it's going to be pretty robust from what we understand. And we expect, we're being told that, there's going to be some type of announcement prior to the end of July, which coincides with the expiration of the $600 a week unemployment benefits. So it's very important that they get the word out so people can understand what they're going to be faced with as these funds either get expire or whether they get extended into the fall and possibly into the winter. So that's Eli. Are you still there? I see there you go.
I'm back on, Chris. For some reason, the computer doesn't like too many applications open at the same time, so he kicked me out.
My brain doesn't either, so I understand.
Yeah, but again, I don't know if we have a few minutes to go over the numbers real quick. We've got enough.
If that's an issue, I don't know if you don't have to show them, maybe you can just mention the Massachusetts piece.
Yeah, so absolutely, that makes perfect sense. So again, on the Paycheck Protection Loan program side, again, we've got over 113 units approved here in the state. $14.2 billion, which is, again, it's a significant amount of money overall, between the EIDL advances, the EIDL loans, and the PPP loans. 242,000 small businesses in Massachusetts have received funding for over $17 billion. So again, pretty significant numbers. We still have a lot of money left on the PPP pool, so over $132 billion is still available. There's some time. I would say August 8th is just around the corner. So I would like to take the opportunity to remind everyone on the call that if you have not taken advantage of the PPP loan program, definitely apply for it. Do it now. Do it sooner. Don't wait till the last minute. We know of a handful of lenders that are not taking applications. So your bank may be one of those lenders that is not taking a PPP loan application for this last, stage. So definitely highly advise folks who have not taken advantage of it. 24-week covered period applies to all new PPP loans, 5-year repayment if the loan is not going to be fully forgiven, of course. And obviously, the Flexibility Act made it easy for a lot of small businesses to get the full amount of the PPP loan forgiven to them. So again, the intent is for folks to get that money forgiven. As I mentioned on the last call, the numbers are still true. So 86.6% of all PPP loans are for less than are for less than $150,000. So a lot of small businesses, The trend for the average loan size nationally continues to go down. So it's below $105,000 now. Pretty impressive. I mean, when you think about it, a lot of small businesses, very small businesses we're seeing lately, independent contractors, sole proprietors, so limited liabilities, a lot of mom and pop shops applying for very small dollars.
And they're getting them. They're getting approved.
Absolutely.
Still. People that
Absolutely.
were completely unconvinced that they were going to need it now all of a sudden are applying, and they're really happy that they are, because some of them are putting stuff on credit cards, which could be 20-30% interest. And once they get this PPP loan, they can pay that off, pay that down, and use it for operations to kind of bridge the gap. So
yeah, and that brings up a very good point, Chris. So the idle loans, again, at 3.75% for-profit businesses are available. Still, we have close to $200 billion in that pool of funding. So definitely, folks that have not taken advantage of it. Yes, there is a cap of $150,000. Yes, there is no longer a grant under the advance, but there's still money at very low interest rates. So I'm getting questions for people who did get approved, and they're saying, "Should I take it?" Right? How are things playing out? Maybe we don't need it. There is no prepayment penalties for the EIDL program, the loan program. So worst case scenario, you don't have to make any payments. You may have to pay 3.75% interest, until the time you pay it back. No prepayment penalties of any kind. I tell all small businesses that I speak with, there's nothing else better out there. So
now
take it.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I jumped to EIDL, but I had a question about EIDL. If people receive $50,000 EIDL, it'll be subtracted from a PPP loan if they apply for that later. Is that correct?
So not for the loan piece. Only the advance needs to be subtracted from the loan forgiveness component.
Can they get both though? Can they get the EIDL and the PPP?
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Yes, they can. So the requirement is that monies cannot be used for payroll for both. Obviously, the Paycheck Protection Loan Program should be used, at least 60% of it, for payroll. So the EIDL loan should not be used for payroll.
Okay.
That's the one, that's the one thing people need to understand. So, but the EIDL loan program's got a 30-year repayment, right? And if you've used your PPP money during the 24-week covered period, and you still, you're faced with a similar economic condition to what we have now, and you still have a need, to supplement your revenues and business operating expenses, you could definitely use EIDL funds for payroll.
So let's talk about an example. I had a small restaurant that I had applied for the EIDL and received the advance because they had 6 or 8 employees, and then they got the grant. The loan at 375 for 30 years, and I think it was around 150,000.
Mm-hmm.
And they then applied for the PPP. What they were talking about doing was renovating the restaurant during this time, paying the employees. So when they get back out of this, they'll have a whole new restaurant kind of ready to go, all redesigned with some of the new trends and whatnot in mind. And the PPP will have made their employees kind of stick around, or entice them to stick around. They'll be able to get that PPP money forgiven. So all they'll have pretty much is a 30-year note to do some renovations at 375 of a restaurant that probably needed it or could have used it anyway.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of making the best use of the time.
So just to be the government man for a second here, the EIDL loan proceeds cannot be used for anything other than working capital needs.
Okay.
So leasehold improvements are not considered business operating expenses.
Okay. All right.
Okay, just to make that clear.
They may be moving money around, you're saying.
Exactly. But to your point, right? So let's say in this scenario, they got $150,000 EIDL loan. They have, let's say, a $100,000 PPP loan and a $10,000 advance. Now, if they use the funds as they're supposed to, 60% of it for payroll and the other 40% of the $100,000 PPP on non-payroll expenses, covered expenses, then they will get the full $100,000 forgiven. However, because they did receive a $10,000 advance under the EIDL program, that $10,000 will have to be deducted from the forgiveness amount.
Okay.
So technically, they're going to only receive $90,000 forgiven. They will owe the bank or credit union that they're banking with and they got the loan from that $10,000. That's going to be at 1% for either 2-year repayment or 5-year repayment, depending on when it was taken out.
Okay.
And then obviously the idle loan of $150,000 will be amortized over 29 years,
Okay.
right? The first 12 months, there's absolutely no payment. So they will end up with a loan of $160,000.
Okay.
They still get $100,000 forgiven.
All right. So we also, we haven't been mentioning recently the other two programs, the 504 and the 7A loans are really great. And they're paying, I think the government is paying the first 6 months of interest and
Principal and interest. Absolutely. Very good point, Chris.
That's extraordinary. And what are the rates? The rates are down at what, under 4?
Yeah, so on the 504 loan program, which is a direct loan from the government, right? So the second lien position on a real estate loan, owner-occupied real estate loan, that is 100% backed by the government through a debenture, a bond sold on the primary market. So current rates for this month were at 2.59% for a 25-year debenture.
Wow.
That's record low. Now the program nationally is up 16% year over year. Now last year was a pretty good year for the SBA, and considering everything that's going on, that tells you, that there's truly nothing better when it comes to real estate, fixed asset financing for owner-occupied, properties and types of businesses.
So let's go back to that restaurant example, and as you had suggested, it be used properly. They might want to refi into the SBA loan because they're going from 3.75 to under 3 for not 30 years but 25 years. That's a pretty good deal, and they might even be able to tack a little bit more debt.
There is definitely a 504 refinance program. So the 504 has 3 components. So it's got a traditional 504 for acquisitions. It's got a refinance program without expansion, and it's got one that is a refinance with expansion. So under the refinance without expansion, that would probably be a good fit.
Yeah.
So they could certainly refinance, the higher 30-year repayment idle loan into the 504, right?
So really, these 3 could really work nicely together: the EIDL, the PPP, and the SBA 504 refinance. You can really bridge this gap and come out with a stronger business in a better financial position and ready for the future.
And small businesses may not be able to do it right away, right? There's certain restrictions with each one of these programs we're talking about. So without getting into too much details, but just to know that those options are available now and down the road.
Yeah. So let me mention Seed Corporation because they are in Taunton and they're partners of ours, and they do quite a bit of lending in Brockton, and they have some special loan programs for Brockton under the 504. So we'll put their information down below in the chat and the Q&A so that you can kind of follow up with them on those products. And again, not only do you get a great rate of under 3% for 25 years and you refinance some debt, but then they'll make the payments for the first 6 months for the principal and so if you haven't looked into this, look into it. And please consult, obviously, your accountant and your banker. A lot of the local banks are still offering these loans. One last thing, and I know you don't like to speculate, and I absolutely respect that 100%, but politically, we've kind of heard the president say and Congress talk about a 4th stimulus, and they seem to say that's going to happen in the next 10 days. As part of PPP, a lot of nonprofits were excluded, including chambers of commerce, economic development agencies, some churches, some advocacy groups, unions, were all barred from applying for the PPP. There is a strong sense that this will be included in phase 4. So what I would say is if you're on a board of a nonprofit or economic development agency or a union organization or association, tell those folks to get ready to talk to your local bank banker, because the PPP has to be put in concert with your local banker. Get ready, get your numbers ready, get your financing ready. Look at the PPP application as it is now for those that qualify, because you're likely to qualify and it may, again, get you over the hump. I have a lot of colleagues who are running smaller chambers of commerce who are looking forward to this, and they're telling me they already have their applications completed and just ready to go as soon as fill in the numbers when they're ready and their bankers are on board. So anything, I know you don't like to speculate, but that's something.
No, it would be welcome news, Chris. I tell you, it'd be welcome news, because definitely, the chambers do deserve to get the fair treatment like every other business, right? Despite, the non-profit status. But, we have seen, and again, this is, our policy is not to comment on proposed legislation. But we have seen where Congress has really looked at flaws of the PPP loan program, and they've made amendments. So I'm hoping, I'm definitely, hopeful that something's going to be done, and especially there's going to be another bill in Congress. They're definitely going to take a second look at any, I would say, any deficiencies, right? Because there were a few types of businesses that were overlooked.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Eli, for being such a stalwart partner here and being here week in and week out. I want to just turn to a couple of the questions that came in and notices. I see the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center is posting that rapid tests for people who need quicker results to travel. It's not accurate, but it's quicker, and it is accepted by some destinations. So that's good news. Thank you for that. I'm guessing that most people saw most of the posts, but let's see if there are any other just questions. When can one apply for the EIDL? They can apply anytime for the EIDL directly, right? Through the link. They don't even have to go through their local banker for that, correct?
That's right. So the EIDL is a direct SBA loan. It's funded through the Treasury, and you go on our website at sba.gov, / COVID-19, and you will be directed to the application link.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you. That seems to be a lot of the questions. I don't see any more. Please reach out, Alexi, if you see anything that I'm not seeing. I see that Susan and others posted resources, and I think that's it. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in again this week. Next week, we have Bob Coughlin from Mass Biotech. He's going to talk a little bit about opportunities for the vaccine and PPE production in the state. We're also going to have the president of Bridgewater State University on with us, Fred Clark. And I know Fred has been very active in formulating a pretty innovative plan to reopen Bridgewater State University. I think his feeling is that this could be a learning opportunity for all, and that they're rising to the challenge, that they've got this, and that they're going to do what they can to try to preserve a learning environment and whatever that takes, without obviously putting people in jeopardy. I know they've, for example, suspended the sports programs for the fall, but they are committed to some housing and some classes on campus and reopening. So we're going to hear directly from him. He's also the chair of our board this year until November. And so we're going to be happy to have him here as well. And hopefully we'll have all of you back. Again, thank you all for participating, panelists and our Zoom callers. And I got one more. Was told by Seed, federal debt could not be refinanced by the SBA loans, cannot be considered for refinance. That was a last minute question. Can SBA loans be refinanced? Maybe not through Seed, but through others, or?
So that debt refi program that I mentioned, right, that has certain restrictions, right? So federal debt cannot be refinanced under the debt refi without expansion.
Okay.
But there is the debt refi with expansion. So again, everything is on a case by case basis.
So if the debt increased a bit, that could be refinanced, maybe to add a production line or something like that.
Yeah. So the expansion has a whole different set of criteria. But again, folks can reach directly out to us here at the SBA or any of our 504 lending partners like Seed. So
great. It's worth exploring. So thank you for your last minute question there, Dan. And have a nice weekend. We hope to see you back here next week, 2 o'clock. Have a great one.
Have a nice weekend.
You too. Thank you, Lexi and Emma.